You were live.
Aloha snack bar, everyone. To say that I'm excited, to say the least, is will be an understatement of the century. I'm actually duct taping my head together right now to ensure that my brain doesn't explode and splatter my MacBook screen. With that being said, we have two exciting guests on today's special Hump Day. I'm going to introduce the man who needs no introduction. He's the Baron of Bitcoin, the Sultan of Silver, the Gandalf of Gold, the Pathfinder to the Road to Ruta, the man who always wears his heart on his sleeve and spaghetti stains on his tie, Bix Weir. Let's not forget the Grand Vizier.
I'm just as excited as you are today.
Awesome, man. And let's introduce the second guest. He is the Grand Vizier of the webbots. He is the warlock of the web, the one and only inventor of webbots, the man who is behind the half-past human, the cyborg himself, Clif High.
Thank you very much. It's too crazy, too early in the morning.
Oh yeah, for you guys. You guys like 9 in the morning over there. I'm sorry for being so hyped up for
Yeah, plus you got to understand, out here on the West Coast, we try for mellow, you know.
Oh, yeah, I know you guys are so mellow. Hey, there's a dam break. That's all right.
Yeah, we got our boat. We're good.
I'm not so sure about mellow in Berkeley these days, which is like 5 miles away. They used to be so chilled. Now they're going militant on me.
It's amazing what a couple of Soros bucks and some paid provocateurs would do. It's truly remarkable.
Yeah, it's all fragile though, guys. I mean, that was the same stuff they had in the 60s in Europe, where this same kind of thing went down as the EU was being put together. They did all these little false flags, and they said to all these little countries, oh look, you got all these agitators that were communists, etc. Join up with us, NATO, good to go, and all that. And yeah, exactly. And it all just sort of faded because there's no real commitment there.
Right, absolutely. With commitment and chaos and all these things happening, I guess the topic that's on both of you guys have on radar for both of you guys, March Madness. Clif, you talked about in your webbots reports where you spoke about that March will be a time of chaos, and you are on the money. You said it will be chaos from January to March. And we're in the thick of it, so I guess I guess I'll start with you, Clif, and then Bix. You could chime in with the madness that's in the markets.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, it's chaotic as hell, and now we've had yesterday the announcement or the sneaky announcement that Fukushima fell into the ocean. So that's adding to everybody's.
What?
Oh, you hadn't heard?
No.
Yeah. Basically, the reactors have melted through and slid into the slope that takes them over into the bottom of the ocean.
Oh my God! Is that good or bad?
Well, it can't be good. I mean, there's no way it can be good because they're going to be in the ocean. Now, if they disperse, and they break up enough, because the thing about radioactivity is its concentration, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you find radioactive substances in nature, you find them repeatedly, constantly, and even when you're out barbecuing, you create them. But because they're little isolated radioactive bits, they generally don't pose any harm to you. It's when you encounter things like pitch blende, which is the quasi-liquefied uranium source that bubbles up to the top of the planet. When you get that kind of stuff, those things are very nasty. And so what do? We take the stuff and concentrate it even further. So to a certain extent, I think if it did separate out enough, it may be a good thing, but in general, it's very negative because now we've got this huge spread in an already damaged ocean. And let me get you this idea here. And Bix can jump in on the weather side with the blob. Look at all these natural scientists running around. We've got all these natural scientists up here at the U of W and in BC and all over the planet that are discussing the strange die-off of starfish all along the West Coast. All right, there's one particular species, and they've finally drilled in and they've identified what they think of as there's two competing theories now: this bacteria or this virus is killing off these starfish. And they're just everybody's at last, now we know it's terrible, there's an extinction event going on, all this stuff, but at last now we know. And it's the same thing as, in my view, as the meteorologists, where they were looking for years at this giant area of hot water off the coast of California that they called the blob. And they came up with dozens and dozens and dozens of theories to explain it. And in both cases, I don't think it's a natural event. I think they were looking at man-made events and trying to come up with a theory, thinking that with a base assumption that this was a natural occurrence. And so the starfish are dying off. Yeah, I'm sure you can find individual starfish that are overloaded with the bacteria or overloaded with the virus, but they're dying off because of the radiation. And that's what's made their immune systems weak. Ergo, these things are going to show up as killing them. If you wanted to do a lot of autopsies, but in general, stopping that virus or bacteria will do nothing. And the ecosystems are failing because of the radiation from Fukushima in the Pacific already. And so now we've got the blob going away, and it went away because they shut off a switch last March. And somewhere, I think Faction B took over some key part of the deep state and said enough of this crap and turned off Blob and Son of Blob, and that's what's led to poor Bix getting water on his head for the first time in 10 years, and and all of the new storms hitting us, as well as all the new radiation hitting the east coast of the U.S. that used to hit us. There's this weird weather thing going on where now all the radiation clouds are blowing across the top of our weather and coming down in like the Ohio Valley and points east. So they're getting, so you guys in the East Coast, they're getting the radiation from Fukushima that's airborne. So in this sense, dropping into the ocean is probably good for you guys.
Oh, that's a good thing. And hopefully if it breaks up, I mean, the nature, especially the ocean, has a way of breaking down radiation and neutralizing it.
Hopefully so, yeah.
Hopefully so, exactly. That's crazy.
It's terrible to live out here now, though. I mean, and see the impact on the coast. We're reasonably protected here in Puget Sound because of the type of flow. There's this lip that prevents a lot of stuff coming in through the Straits of San Juan. And we're sort of protected, but at some point it'll even come into here, and all of the incredibly rich marine life may die off. It's also possible that maybe, as you say, it'll dissipate, and then maybe places like Puget Sound will be the seed areas to put the stuff back in the ocean.
Right, exactly. Wow. Bix. March Madness.
This happens every time I talk to Cliff. I start off thinking, oh yeah, I'm going to talk about the craziness about the debt ceiling and the Fed meeting, and Cliff comes up with, humanity's on the brink, and what's up with California is getting deluged. California used to be an inland sea, and over the years, and whether or not it was HARP related or something else, it does seem like our weather was being held off for a very long time. And during that time, they built out the entire central California. There's housing developments. There's huge farm acreage, which is like the majority of fruits and vegetables and nuts are going in California. So if this continues, and if we have more problems like at the Oroville Dam, which is filling up again, huge, I think it's a false flag. It's a huge problem. They can no longer use the spillway. So they basically filled up every dam and stream behind the Oroville Dam that fed into it. So they got the level down like 50 feet, but now it's filling up again and everything's filled up behind it. So that's a mess. If it has a problem, or any of the other dams, they're all feeding in to the Sacramento Delta, which is basically artificial riverways, all pointing in the way that they can control. And because they had controlled it for so long, they completely overbuilt California with the very wealthy housing market going on. So things are ugly and getting uglier, and it feeds right into Cliff High's analysis of craziness all over the place, really starting, I mean, I don't want to speak for you, but March, April, May are kind of big times, especially in the financial markets. We got the debt ceiling expiration on the 15th. I don't think they're going to pass anything through Congress, which isn't going to do anything. We've been through this before because they have like special budget things they can do, the Treasury Secretary. But one of the big things, it takes money out of the Exchange Stabilization Fund, which is kind of the kitty they use for part of the market rigging, which is great for gold, silver, and Bitcoin investors because it means less money in the hands of the market manipulators. And then the Fed meeting, not many people believe the Fed anymore other than the mainstream media. And because, every time the Fed meets, they rig the markets. So I expect a Fed announcement and nothing to happen because they're rigging the markets and continue to rig the markets. That's my take on what's happening in the near term. And I have like 50 million questions for Cliff if we get into it later.
Go for it.
Well, I mean, the more interesting things to me are the more kind of secrets revealed memes that you have come up with over the years, and with the latest CIA announcement or WikiLeaks.
Oh man, isn't that cool? Oh
yeah, what's up with the Vault 7, Cliff?
Oh, haven't you guys looked at that? Oh, you got to. Oh, download that stuff and have a look. It's like it is your spy kit. Okay, it is how they did it. It's the malware, it's the codes, the step-by-step approach to doing it that they've been using for at least 57 years. I've been able to see in the data sets, and it goes from your old style analog telephone systems that I used to work on when I was a kid coming up in the business, all the way up into the modern cars, and how they could jack your car and decide, all right, let's lock the brakes up just as you're supposed to do that turn over that curve in the Rockies there, right? So they probably murdered people with this technology as well.
Michael Hastings.
Here's the deal. Here's the deal, though, at a real fundamental level.
Yeah.
Most people are not aware of this, but the NSA and the CIA, they're not really spy agencies in a spy versus spy national state kind of a way. Okay, their real existence is too focused, in the sense that CIA has their particular focus, which originated with and is totally absorbed with UFO crud, and then the NSA is entirely focused on spying for corporations, for the Fed and all the banks. That's all they do. If they ever captured a terrorist, it would be by sheer accident, and you'd probably hear them touting it to high heaven for years and years and years, because it would be so accidental, because they're not looking for them. All they're looking for is information that allows them us to get an advantage, a sweeter deal, all of this kind of stuff. And now here are all of the tools that these two organizations have used to cause all these problems for years. And so basically it's like if we're in a neighborhood and I've got a knife and Bix has a gun and we get to a fight, well, hey, Bix has got an advantage. But if I also show up with a gun, then no gun is an advantage, right? Then you're back down to the individuals again. So now all of the tools are out on the table. I bet you already you've got probably 3/4 of them fixes and patches and all different kinds of things going into place globally that's just going to shut off the NSA for its primary purpose, which is to suss out ways to make more money in an evil fashion and funnel basically it to the people in the CIA who are shoving it into holes in the ground trying to reverse engineer spaceships.
Jeez.
Hey Cliff, how with all this, now that we know that every single electronic device that we own can and probably is watching and listening to us, how do we ever get out of this? I mean, how can it ever be trusted again?
Well, I don't know that it can. I think it obviously forces a change in humanity. This is what I was talking about with Sarah the other day, is that I see these kids around me, and I've chatted with them online. I've chatted with minds online, and then was shocked to discover they were 8 and 10 years old. And in the internet age and color and whether you're bald or not, none of that stuff really ever shows through if you don't suss it out yourself. So I was kind of shocked about the evolution of the minds and the way they're thinking. So I think what we end up having to do is to decide that in the vast majority of it, it doesn't matter. It does not matter to my life very much if I'm constantly being monitored by the CIA or the NSA for a couple of different levels. One of them is that we're rapidly approaching a point where most of that information will never, ever, ever, ever be accessed, nor could it be accessed because it'll be impossible to index. These guys have the same issue that Google has, all right? Google is sweating it out really profusely as to whether they'll still be in existence in a few years. Why is this? Because the size of the internet is growing so rapidly, that their search engines are nowhere near able to keep up. So they may be relegated to a small backwater of internet search engine business in a few years, simply because the technology to find stuff in the vast array of what's available to be found is not keeping up with the vast array of stuff being found growing. That's why they're so deep into quantum computing, and they're desperate that it should work.
Who would if Google fails? Who or what type of technology will fill that void?
That's a really interesting question. If I could answer that now, obviously, I would have the next Google in my head. I've got some ideas. I've got some ideas as to how distributed systems could work to discover that, and it's sort of taking the quantum complexity stuff and flipping it on its side. So look at what Google has to do. All they really care about is getting 70%. They want to deliver a good search experience to you. They want to get the top 70% sites that you're likely to want to see. But as those sites grow exponentially, their ability to index with SQL Server engines fails, because it's basically a brute force approach where it just has to go through and look at every damn row in the index to find the row that it thinks you're after. And so it's got to do it extremely fast, and we're running out of the ability of the machines to keep up with it all. So what they decided to do was to go quantum. And so basically what they're going to do is, you can think of it as they throw all of the possible solutions to the problem onto a hot sheet of metal, and the one that sticks to the metal is the one they want. All the others bounce off, and they don't care how that occurs. They just grab the one that sticks and assume it's within their 70%. It's the first one they give to you. And this approach can work using things like quantum annealing and these sorts of technologies, but they have to invest in these quantum computers, and they're all analog machines. They become a problem in themselves, and that the complexity to run them and so forth it starts building up. So they're basically, Google becomes priest to deep thought, right? So that's one approach to doing it, but fundamentally, the idea is still put everything into a single basket and then get better at picking the stuff out of the basket, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Now the other approach to that is the Bitcoin kind of an idea, whereas we don't put everything into a big basket. We just assume that the internet already is a big basket, and we just come up with a better way of thinking about finding the things that we want. So instead of trying to put our intelligence and our complexity into storing an image of the internet and figuring out a better way to pull stuff out of it, we put our thoughts and our energy and our complexity into basically, how do we frame a question in such a way that even the most simple search engine can find the one we want? Okay, it's kind of a it's not, I'm not being pedantic, but if you know how to ask the question, even the most absurdly simple search engine would be able to instantly point you to the solution, simply because within all questions are embodied the solutions that you're seeking. And so if I knew, for instance, if I say, well, give me the best, the best car dealer near me, is so vague that it in no way could be answered in a meaningful fashion, because you would have to know how I define best. But if, for instance, my PC knew from all of my interests that I really was saying something along the lines of, find me some place that's close enough for my lazy butt to be able to actually be motivated to go there, which probably is less than 5 miles, that will have just that red 65 Mustang with the tinted windows and the green fur trim that I wanted.
That's scary.
Exactly. Thus, you see the impetus towards the devices, the Siris, and the little digital assistants. See, so there's the competition for you. There's Google's competition right now, and they're sweating it out, and they're putting all their money into the deep thought approach.
Alexa and all that.
Correct. Because if those little machines know you well enough, then they know enough to discard 99.9999% of the internet in any kind of a search.
Yeah, and from what I hear, it seems like Amazon's Alexa has really gotten the jump on both Google Assistant and Apple's Siri, in terms of of their new ubiquitous computing, and how it's integrating with smart devices within the house for the future of the Internet of all things. And most people don't even realize is that like a good chunk of the internet is built on Amazon's AWS servers. So
Correct.
that's
Correct.
huge.
Yeah. That is indeed a very large first mover advantage. Yeah.
Yeah,
Hey,
absolutely.
hey, Cliff, on the as far as this new information on the embedded malware and embedded backdoors and everything,
Yeah.
how do you think that will affect Bitcoin? I understand how it would affect, the wallets. You always want to have your wallet so that it never goes online. But how would it affect Bitcoin in general, do you think?
I've looked in there specifically for anything that might have given me a clue to. My first thought was, oh, hey, maybe there's something in here that gives us a clue code-wise that Bitcoin was a CIA, that they participated in its creation. And I didn't find anything along those lines. I did find a couple of small traces of code that can be used as or were nascently thought to be able to be used to be able to track Bitcoin transactions. And this appears to be back from like the Silk Road period, right?
Mhm.
So other than that, I haven't found anything that is going to be a direct impact from the CIA drops here. But you have to okay, so at a direct impact level. Now, if you were to try and do something like send a copy of your private keys in an encrypted email to yourself in another location. So say I wanted to get a bunch of money out of China. And so I go on over to China. I have a great, huge ostrich feather deal that nets me millions of won. And so I put my millions of won in Bitcoin there, put it into a wallet. I've got to go through Chinese customs. So I'm going to email myself my code in an encrypted fashion. And then when I'm out of the country, I'll retrieve that code, recreate the wallet, and have all of my illegal ostrich feather gains. And so I go to do this. I would have to be aware that no matter what encryption I was using, those private codes are available to those robots that have been placed on the email servers that were in between it and myself. So that would be your point of vulnerability.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, as they put the malware that they put into individual sites and this kind of thing. I've looked at a lot of that. It seems to be less focused on or less dangerous to anything in a Bitcoin fashion. But what they're doing with the email servers, that looks to be a little bit on the more dangerous side, because once you've got the encrypted email over on your machine, then you've got the time to go ahead and go through it and see what's in it. And, break the encryption, right?
Yeah, that I'm kind of on the same line. And your data, one of the key things that keeps telling me that Bitcoin is going to be around for a long time is that your data has it going out quite a few decades, doesn't it?
Oh yeah. And see, we're going to get to the point where we're going to need it, where we need desperately to have an electronic vehicle for settling exchanges. It's just another form of communication, right? In the last Great Depression, radio came out of that last Great Depression in a way that didn't exist prior to it. That technology was the escapism of the time from the Depression itself. It didn't cost people anything other than the initial capital expenditure. It was very cheap to run. Everything was paid for by advertisers, and that model took off from there. But in its end, its heyday, it led to, in one way of thinking, it led to CB radios, this person-to-person communication that the elites were freaking out about in the 70s for a lot of different reasons. And so they shut it down. But then that same impetus in this depression led us to the internet, and on top of the internet, our new form of radio, if you will, which is Bitcoin, because it's a new way of communicating. And in this case, we're going to communicate exchanges. So we don't even have to think about it as money. We're just communicating exchanges electronically. And I'm going to use the Bitcoin as a vehicle to exchange, some of my labor in the past for some of the socks that you produce. I don't know if you guys are old enough, but if you get into the Bitcoin world, way back when, the only thing you could buy were these
Alpaca
socks. Yeah, they were just great. But hey, there were 6 Bitcoin per sock. Those are the most damned expensive socks I own.
Yeah.
there was like kids starting up Bitcoin online stores that they'd only accept Bitcoin for little trinkets, and they were getting 20, 30 Bitcoin for these little things.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Wow.
Now they're multimillionaires if they held on to their Bitcoin. Nobody really knows when they bought or sold. But one more question. I don't want to hog up V's questions. One more question on Bitcoin going forward. Your data also has Ethereum doing something wonky in the near future, and then there's long-term data for Ether as well. But I from what I heard before, there's not a lot of other cryptos that kind of make it in the long run. Is that right?
I have Dash. I have Monero with some legs. Okay, they're starting to show up in the longer term data sets. Doesn't mean that it's going to be robust or anything, because there's just not enough detail to make any kind of a projection. Unless I get a certain threshold of chatter around it, we just don't have enough prescient language to make it worthwhile. Last few times I've done that sort of thing, where it was with a small amount of data on long-term data types, it came out totally screwy, because basically what happens is you see the stuff hit long-term data, and the closer you get to it, the more details start clustering around in that set, and then finally it dawns on you, oh no, it's not a hubcap I'm looking at in the data sets, it's a turtle shell. But until you get to that point, you can't tell. But I do have a Dash, I have Monero, and then there's a real high burst of emotional intensity around Cloak. Okay, but
what's Cloak? Is it kind of like Monero, where it's privacy centric?
Yeah, exactly. But here's the thing on that: you got to be careful about that, because we had that same kind of thing about the Doggy coin and about Litecoin, and they both have fizzled out.
Yeah.
You got to get a big emotional burst. And then there's let me see, there was one other one that, well, there's always the Ripple. The Ripple environmental, it has legs too, but it's not going to be as spectacular as like Ether. And Ether joins up with something in 2019-ish. And becomes a little bit more robust after that. So Bitcoin was really unusual because they were building network effect. And it took me a while after reading the white paper. I mean, I knew that from the minute I read the white paper that this was brilliance itself. It was a stunning diamond just sitting there, glistening in the road. And but it took a while for the network effect to occur. Now that we've seen that demonstrated, I know how to look for it in the data. And so I can see the beginnings of it in things like Ethereum and in Dash and Monero. Monero's got something, I guess, that's building the network effect a little bit faster. But beyond that, I don't have any of those at first hints even on any of the other alts.
Mm-hmm. Got it. Okay. So Monero is out of all of them right now, the new ones, like the apart from Bitcoin, of course, Monero is showing legs. And that's good. I'm happy to hear that, because Monero, I like their whole privacy aspect of it, and I think especially in light of this new Vault 7, I think that's going to be pretty good.
Good point. Yeah, that's kind of like crystallizes it.
Exactly. Plus the fact that you have banks out there, and you have intelligence agencies saying, yeah, we're doing our best to track every activity that's going on in the Bitcoin blockchain, trying to find out who's transacting what. And now the developers, the Bitcoin community is trying to stay one step ahead of that, which is a very good thing. So it's interesting to see how cryptocurrency is really coming out. And my question to you is this: what going forward in terms of the revelations that we have with Vault 7, and for guys like us within our sphere of influence, within our sphere of contacts and people that we have access to and information, there was nothing that was dropped by Julian Assange and WikiLeaks that we did not already know. For us, it just backed up everything that we've been saying for years. But for a lot of the doubters that are out there, this is the key evidence of what we've been speaking about for many years now, Cliff. So in the light of these new revelations going forward, what do you think is going to be what does the webots, what does your research show you is going to transpire in the next few months, in the next maybe following year or so? of the changes that will occur, will there be more of a pushback against this quote unquote deep state entity? Will there be a more of a demand for privacy, a demand for freedom, or is it going to continue on as Americans just love their servitude? They love being surveilled and they love their slavery.
Oh, pretty much that. That's the way it's always been, Guy. I mean, look, this is realistically, you're going to have about 75% of our population that just doesn't give a damn. They want to get the hot dogs, go to the tailgate party, you know, go to the beach in summer, and they're okay with working their ass off in the cold winter to do this. And so you know, now but you're correct in the other part. There's going to be a huge demand for privacy and privacy tools. And there's going to be now a new industry, but everybody is overlooking. I mean, no offense to you guys, all right, because I do get the sense that you're an economist and not a coder, and we know that Bix is a bar brawler, and he's not a coder.
He is, you know, that's why
I'm good at it. I'm good at it.
He's good at it, right?
That's why I got to be with him for the next Anarcho-Polka. I got to keep this guy out of trouble.
Well, yeah, especially since I hear Joe Rogan may be down there, so you don't want the two of them getting together. So
no,
anyway,
I don't want that to happen, and you know. We need CJ to monitor him on the tequila show.
There you go.
Everything
but anyway, here's the deal. Everybody's overlooking or everybody's missing in all of the discussion I've seen about what has come out of Vault 7. Everybody is missing the key point. And that is, here is the very giant red pill for all the corporations and countries of the world that have been victimized by the deep state that originates out of our country and the Western banking-infused republics. This was a technological nuclear truth bomb. All right, homage to Bill Holter. All right, because look what happened. Now as well as tens of millions of other people that might be so motivated, can take all of these tools or all these releases and develop tools very rapidly, because I've got everything I need to do so, to test it and all of this. And so now the deep state at this level is neutered. Okay, that's the point.
I got it.
Okay, they can spy on USA citizens, but that's not their job. Never has been their job. The NSA has been trying to spy on corporations around the planet. Now they won't be able to do it. They won't be able to hack the telephone systems. They won't be able to do any of this stuff where it's behind a corporate wall where they care about this stuff. Now, the 75% of the USA population that doesn't give a rat's ass if the NSA knows what they're eating when and what the fart smells like, they're not a big deal. NSA doesn't care about them anyway. They don't want to see all of that stuff. It's just noise to the signal they're trying to get. So we've effectively had Vault 7 in a way that Snowden did not do. Snowden gave us revelations to what was going on. Okay.
Yeah, prison and all that.
Correct. But now we've got the situation where here someone has handed us the technological solution.
Countermeasures.
Correct. And at a level that makes all of the CIA and the NSA, because they're using the same tools, they have no more power. It's so they're not going to be able to find out all of this stuff. So there's going to be a huge economic impact that everybody is missing here. I heard some guys the other day on one of these radio shows that just were dissing, oh, go away. It's just another WikiLeaks thing from the CIA. We know they're bad guys. And yeah, we know they're bad guys, but that's not the point of yet another release. This is how to turn their switches off. And you can do it in mere days. Now watch a whole industry of people spring up that say, you know, want to harden your system against the CIA or whatever. Here, I've developed this suite of tools that have, you know, can take care of this stuff from Vault 7. I know guys that are working on that right now.
Wow. That's amazing. That's what this whole thing is about. See, I'm looking at it as a layman. I'm like, we already know this. But what you said, it's a whole different ballgame. You guys, Cliff, guys like you have been given the electronic countermeasures in this war. You've completely made null and void their ability to do anything. That's amazing. That's a great perspective. I've never thought of it that way.
And it's going to have huge impacts on all of the economics too, because it's going to change the future of bidding on any kind of international project where the USA always had a substantial advantage because they could listen in on the phone calls of everybody that was participating, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Now all that's gone, right? Now we're operating in the dark like the poor guys out of Mexico.
Right, exactly. Right.
You know what I'd add to that, and it's amazing what's happening to see the battles between the good guys and the bad guys coming out into the open. I've been saying for years there's good guys and bad guys battling out behind the scenes, but this is starting to bring it all into the open. And if you look at what Trump tweeted out about the wiretapping from Obama just days before this WikiLeaks thing, this battle, they are fighting the battle of truth bombs being dropped left and right. If you do this, I'm going to do this. And all of it is great for humanity because we get to see these battles happening before our very eyes now, when before they were all happening behind the scenes. And I think it's awesome. And just the timing of all this stuff. They were going after Jeff Sessions. So Obama comes out and tweets that, Trump comes out and tweets that Obama's been tapping him. Trump denies it, or Obama denies it. I get them all mixed up. Obama denies it, and then all of a sudden this huge dump of, oh, by the way, not only has Obama and his people been spying on you, Trump, they've been spying on everybody in the world.
It's incredible, yeah.
Isn't it amazing? It's like Trump says, "Oh, there's a problem in Sweden," and people and the press, they jump down his throat. What's he talking about? There's nothing in Sweden. And then the next day, it's like Malvo's and Ricky B is burning to the ground. And then Trump says that he tweets on Saturday, "Oh, was I hacked? Was I wiretapped?" And the media again gets baited, and they go after this guy, and they're like, "What's he talking about? He doesn't have any substantial proof." And then boom, here comes WikiLeaks, Volt 7. Everybody's getting wiretapped.
Well, guys, I mean, think about it, okay? Just what you've just said here. The rational mind would say, incident number 1, incident number 2, I wonder if there's a pattern developing here.
Oh,
right?
yeah, clearly.
Well, I don't think, I think that in my opinion, is that there was a group of individuals that decided, like Catherine Austin Fitts said, they decided to sacrifice empire in order to save the United States. And this group of individuals got together perhaps as long ago as maybe 10 or 12 years. I don't know how long they've been working this. And they're following this particular pattern of activities that I know exist within the U.S. military training, because my father went through the War College and I helped him with his homework. So I got to read all that stuff. This is at Leavenworth, Kansas. And as opposed to the College of the Americas. But in any event, so this was a long-planned counter coup against the globalists, and they're still involved in this. And those same intelligence people that turned off the blob back when, that was really, the war was really on then. Those are the same guys that are, probably walking on up and saying, Mr. Trump, it might be a good day to think about this subject. And then 2 or 3 days later, something happens because of that particular tweet going out.
It truly is remarkable. I mean, the timing, it's unreal. Totally unreal. Bix, you got any questions?
I do.
Go ahead, man.
Hey, Cliff, let's talk about the night vision goggles.
Sure.
I heard somewhere that you got yours. I have a set as well. I heard somewhere you said you got yours from Ed Grimsley.
Yes, I did. I had him. He was my intermediary. I talked with the people at the factory. We were able to walk through the hand selection of optics so that I could at some point connect them to a video camera. That was my thinking. Now, did you meet with Ed? Because I have a story for you that you'll love. Did he just mail them to you? No, I can't go in. I can't go into the particulars. Sorry about that.
Okay. I can. That was one of the scariest things I've ever done. I got in touch with Ed. This was, I don't know, 5-6 years ago. Ed has passed away since I heard, which is sad.
Sure.
But
yeah.
So I get in touch with Ed. I said, I want a pair of these goggles. And he's like, well, where do you live? And I said, I'm in the Bay Area. And he was living up in Calistoga in kind of like a little hut. and I'm like, okay. And they're pretty pricey. I think it was $3,000 or so for these goggles. And
what's so special about these goggles?
Well, they're night vision goggles. You can see things in the sky that you cannot see otherwise. You can see. I mean, we'll go on. I'll tell you after I finish the story because he said, well, why don't you come and meet me? I have this favorite little Mexican restaurant in Calistoga.
Oh my God!
And I'm like, oh my God, this guy is a grizzly old. So I go up there, sweating. My palms are sweating. I have $3,000 in cash in my hand. And I go to this little dive Mexican restaurant. In comes this old grizzled war veteran, scariest looking guy. He's like, "Are you Bix?" Yeah. And oh my God. And we sit down, he tells me about his life. He was a sharpshooter in the military. The military kicked him out. He, learned about these goggles and he used them to see things in the sky, blah, blah, blah. And he has a Russian connection. So he pulls them out and he says, "Well, we got to go test them to make sure you're getting what you paid for." I said, "Okay." He said, "Follow me." And we get in this, he gets in this old truck and I get in my car and follow him. And he takes me to this completely back road place where there's no lights, because the less light pollution you have, the better these things work. And we go into this field and I'm like, I'm going to die right here. It's me and this grizzled old Ed Grimsley in exchange. And I'm like, oh my God.
And you just know he's got that big knife.
Oh, I didn't even ask what he's got there after he told me he was a sharpshooter for the military. And he was supposedly one of the best the military ever had. And they kicked him out for, according to him, he was a little anti-government at the time. But yeah, he pulls out the goggles. He goes, "All right, just look up there." And I look up, and it's really cool when you first look in because you can see all the stars. Not all of them, but massively more than you can see with your eyes.
Over 10 times. Over 10 times.
Oh, it's crazy.
Natively, you can only see about 600 lights in the sky in the best of circumstances, even out in the middle of the ocean. But with these, you see at least 6,000. It scares the crap out of you.
Wow. Holy cow.
Yeah, and I'm looking through them. I go, "Oh yeah, it's cool. Yeah, it's really neat." And because it is cool when you first look. He goes, "Do you see anything?" I said, "No, not really." He goes, "Let me check him out." He looks for him. About a minute later, he goes, "Okay, here's a couple on patrol," and he gives me the goggles, and I see these two lights traveling at a rapid pace across the horizon. And I'm like, "Well, those could be satellites." And he goes, "Do you ever see a satellite go that fast and that close together?" I said, "No." And all of a sudden I look again and they shoot off to the left. I'm like, "Wait a minute, what the hell was that?" So that's my story with Ed Grimsley in the dark. That was crazy.
And you survived, yeah.
I did.
We don't know how many people don't.
Yeah, he didn't apparently. I don't know if they got to him or he just died of old age and natural causes.
No, he had a lot of problems from service in Nam. That got a lot of guys. So even like my dad, he died from his wounds from Vietnam, even though it took a number of years because of all of the nasty chemicals and the stuff that they were exposed to.
Mm. CJ, you got a quick question for Cliff?
Yeah, Cliff. Hey, we keep seeing all the turmoil in DC in regards to, reform and repeal and replace Obamacare. We have the upcoming debt ceiling, everything that's taking place. And sometimes my gut instincts tell me that this is a distraction, to keep us from the impending financial crisis that's, looming right in front of us. So what are your webbots telling you regarding that?
Well, we've known for months and months that we were going to hit this period from March through May that was going to be a very intense chaos that was eventually going to resolve to the economic issue. I don't see it as being a put-on theater to distract it. I see it as a natural outgrowth of a revolution, really, and the consolidation of Deep State B faction winning. Bear in mind, guys, we are actually looking at the civil war that's ongoing that simply at this stage does not involve the population. And we're seeing people die. We're seeing the collateral damage from innocents, so to speak, other people from other nations being killed off in this, both as a warning and because they were, go-betweens or pawns or something. And we're also seeing a lot of the ramifications of the war ongoing, slowly starting to creep out into the public. But I think at some level, they don't want that out yet because of we know that Faction A doesn't want that out under any circumstances, and I think Faction B is holding that back as kind of like the ultimate weapon here. That if you guys get too exactly, and if you guys get too out of it, then we'll just go public with the whole thing, and your asses are toast. But at the same time, the Faction B, what Bix calls the good guys, they're fellow travelers, all right? These are some really nasty sons of bitches that have been murdering people in order to keep the UFO and the free energy and all of this kind of stuff secret for years, that just so happen to no longer be on the side of the people that are against you and I. So that's very much the old Arabic saying, the guy who's exactly. And so we're just fellow travelers. I don't see them as necessarily good in that sense. But we're at a very interesting period of time that is just going to be spectacular. Getting back to the question about the chaos and the economic stuff here, our data sets show that from now through May is going to be and that means like to the end of May is going to be a period of increasing levels of chaos and economic turmoil. So it's going to get worse day after day after day in a building tension sense. And a lot of the young kids have never heard me say this, but when I first started setting out in this whole business here, I looked at Plutarch's Wheel of Emotions. He's this Polish philosopher and professor who codified emotions. I altered it and added a few things, and then I adapted it to the body. One of the things I did was to adopt it to building tension and release of tension. And so we all know as males that, you know, you get drunk and you got that building tension in you, and then you're going out, you have a fight, and you're in release tension, and you're happy as the tension builds, and you're happy as you're having the fight and the tension releases. So the emotional tone is different. But when you've got building tension, like for meetings and stuff like this, you know your stomach actually hardens up. The muscles are actually okay. Well, so this is what we're in now through May, is we're into this period of collective building tension. And then in June, we get a little tiny bit of a respite of release of tension, and things sort of calm down for a bit. And then my data has earthquakes and all kinds of problems relative to the environment and the weather that sort of snaps us out of it sometime in July. And also speaking to that, Northern California is really in for it, because we've had for months forecasts that we're going to get continuing winter-like weather well into May all along the West Coast. And right now, I just was out walking the dog before we sat down here, and we've got probably 4 to 7 inches of new snow on the local hills, and maybe 1.5 feet on the mountains here. We were on, had generators because we've lost power. We're getting ice, rain, and snow.
Wow.
And this is the intensity is unusual even for our weather, our area here, and it shows no sign of letting up. Plus, we've got this other problem, that is that they held that blob in place for almost 10 years. And so for 10 years, California heated up and dried out. And it dried out at a level that in my opinion, what's going on is the Earth is trying to balance its weather now. And the heat loads, that's what all the storms are always constantly trying to do, is to even out heat around the planet. And so I think that the fact that they held it for 10 years is actually going to cause California to draw moisture out of the Pacific towards it until we get some kind of a more slop over into something closer to balance. So that's not good for Bix and everybody there.
Bix, let me ask you a question. I mean, Cliff just talked about good guys, bad guys. What's your sources telling you?
Well, my sources are mainly me, from the Federal Reserve Bank of Boston data of Ruta going into basically arguing for a gold standard. The U.S. the new $100 bill saying, written in gold, we have the right to overthrow our government.
Yes.
Banking basic pamphlet with little kids going to a bank cashing in dollars for gold coins. I've come to a realization lately, though, which is kind of even scary to me, and not about the good guys and bad guys, but the kind of the relation between silver, gold, and Bitcoin. And going forward, historically, I'd put gold and silver together as monetary assets, and then I added Bitcoin later. But going forward, I see them very much splitting apart, as in silver being too rare and too much in demand for new technologies to be used as money. I see gold having huge problems. I fight with all my GATA guys about this. Gold is not as scarce as people say. The powers that be have hidden a lot of gold, and I've shown that many times. Gold in the Grand Canyon, gold at Chocolate Mountain, Yamashita's gold, all that stuff. So there's a problem with scarcity with gold. But the biggest problem I see with gold going forward, if it's going to be used as a monetary asset, is concentration. Gold is concentrated into a few hands. So if it is used as money ever again, which all the gold bugs demand, it's going to be concentrated, and the people who hold the gold are not going to want to give it out. So I don't see gold being used as any significant form of money. either, which leaves Bitcoin, which is a great form of money and a great form of currency. So yeah,
well, there's something else there too, Bix, and that's within the data. I think maybe I've alluded to it. I've never really gotten into it, so we can scare the hell out of everybody right at the moment.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
Let's do it. Yeah.
Hold on, I gotta change. I gotta put on my depends. Now,
well, okay. So it doesn't really, probably it doesn't affect my lifetime, but it may well affect both of you guys, right? But our data sets show that there's going to be this technology bloom here, probably as a result of the truth bombs coming out, releasing the space alien technology, Antarctica, all of that. Mixed in there is some stuff that even before we knew the Antarctica stuff coming up, and I'm talking about from maybe 4 or 5 years ago, I was in communication with some people that Bix would know in the gold world, and I was checking some things out with them, and we were discussing a few things. And some of the data I had was pointing to this invention that was going to come along, where people would be able to take a couple of, let's just say a couple of probes, stick them into the earth in a particular point, dial in a frequency, and have silver run out of the ground, or gold, right?
So liquidate them.
It basically would liquefy and allow you to extract by their ability to vibrate this stuff at a particular frequency. So these frequency machines are going to come on out, right? And so it's going to make a big boom in mining because it'll be direct energy application to the extraction of metal without having to dig up all the dirt necessarily. But of course, there will be a lot of dirt digging, and a lot of these machines will be used in factory settings, not actually in a tunnel in the ground. However, we have really long-term forecast, and so that would be from like 2029 onward, maybe sometime into the 2040s. So it could be off by 10 years because there's virtually no details involved. But we're getting hints that those same frequency tools are going to get to the point where they'll just be able to dial in and create silver or gold. And at that point, metals cease to become useful because you can just create as much as you want. Correct. And it'll be true of any kind of a substance, and that's when we're on the road to replicators and so on. And so at that point, that's why we show Bitcoin as being so damn huge at that point. So a whole Bitcoin, might be family inheritance that generations can live off of.
But would it I've heard you say something like that, and I've written in my book that wouldn't at some point, if you have a replicator that can create your basic necessities out of thin air, would there be a need for money at that point?
Sure, but it's not for the reason that you think. It's for the communication. It's for the like value exchange to say, and it's an emotional thing, Guy. It's to say that, hey, thanks for the song because you were a good artist, right? Or, hey, you brewed a good batch of homemade beer here. In a deflationary environment, I'm of the opinion, first off, that all these cyborg guys and the transhumanists are really a joke. They're trying to become machines. Machines are very fragile. Okay, we're anti-fragile. And I'm of the opinion that deflationary environment will free up humans from being drudges. And then what will happen is the blooming of our creativity, and we'll sell our creativity to each other the way that humans really ought to. We'll do the things that we're really good at. We're not really very good at, sorting mail or, being production line kind of drones. Drones are better at that. And once we get into the habit of making the machines, there's this stuff in woo-woo world that I was introduced to years ago in terms of the concept, and I named it GLASS, okay? A generic linguistically activated substrate. And you'll see some of the woo-woo guys in the UFO community talk about it as self-actuating software. And basically what it is actually a combination of the two. It's a sort of an intelligent material. And so you could get a chunk of this space material, rip it off your spaceship, walk away, the spaceship grows new stuff to fill in the part you ripped off, and you take the chunk you've got and you write on it with a pen some special words, and it activates relative to that. So you're basically programming it. So it's coding at this level. So I instinctively understood that. And we're getting hints of that level of stuff coming out of Antarctica. So if we're looking at that in our data sets now, then I would say that maybe in 5 or 6 years, we're into the Model T world of Jetsons, that kind of thing.
Right. And speaking of technology in Antarctica, what's your take on what's going on over there? I mean, Bix talked about it. A few times we had Deborah Carruthers, Bankster Slayer. She was on earlier this morning. She's written a litany of articles on it on roguemoney.net. Cliff, what's your take on that?
You do stocks and bonds and stuff, right?
Yeah.
Okay, go and check out this company called Leidos, Leidos. All right, I think the spelling is correct, but it's the rebranding of SAIC.
Okay.
Okay, SAIC core company distanced themselves from SAIC, the conglomerate, and rebranded themselves, and all they're focusing on is Antarctica. So if you wanted to get into the Antarctica play, that would be one of the stocks you could potentially buy into. Why? Well, because these guys are really, really, really good at getting deep state contracts. They're part of the deep state, and they are putting their whole central company. And you've got to know this company and the people involved to really understand what this means. But that whole central core of the company is doing nothing but focus on Antarctica.
Wow.
And so it'd be like if we had, say, Microsoft, as an analogy, if Microsoft were to spin off all of its divisions, all of the consulting, all of the servers, all of the cloud, all of that stuff, and just have their initial core company that was software focused and renamed itself as, Next Step or whatever, and focused all of its energy on Antarctica, it would be that level of significance. So we're talking about a potentially trillion-dollar company for all I know, in terms of the new entity that's got all its energy focused on Antarctica. And these were the people that put us on the moon, SAIC, arguably.
Got it. Wow. Bix.
Yeah, so huge shit.
Big time.
Hey, Cliff, one more thing on the stock certificates, DTCC, failure to deliver, all that stuff that is currently embedded within our economic system, all this fraudulent rehypothecation of shares and things like that are going on daily. What does a WebBot see as far as how that all sorts out?
We get a lot of this language around caught out, okay, and people are caught out. I've had people in the business tell me, oh, it means that the person couldn't get in on the investment. And I say, no, the way the language is defined, these people are caught out because they've got investments, but they're not able to convert it into dollars or even anything meaningful. So they can't extract wealth from it. And so it's sort of going to be MF global to death, just piece by piece by piece by piece over the next couple of years, as opposed to a big giant crash. That's what the data seems to be showing. So I'm kind of hopeful about that part of it.
So we're heading for the basically the crashing into the rice paddy rather than crashing into the mountain.
Yeah, we'll bounce around in the muck for a while. Yeah, that's a real good way of looking at it. Yeah,
for quite some time. That's awesome. Good deal. Bix, Weir, what say you, my friend?
I know there was a lawsuit with I think it was Dole when he spun off a division, and the 51%. Yeah, there was too many shares when they tried to settle, and the judge just threw up his hand and said, "Oh my God, what is going on here? You brokerage houses, you figure it out. This is your problem. I can't get into this." I can see that happening over and over and over again. But at the same time, Cliff, you have data saying there's some type of hyperinflation that's going to go into the markets as well. Can you kind of that one out?
We've had stuff saying that the chaos of May leads the Federal Reserve to a couple of decisions somewhere, between now and May. They're probably going to raise rates repeatedly once every month or something, at the same time that they're just shoveling the created money as fast as they can out the back door. So the data sets are having this hyperinflation. So we've had this peg or temporal marker in August that is where we'll start getting words around the 125,000 Dow. And so it doesn't mean it'll be 125,000 in August, but we'll start getting language out and about in a much more meaningful way than you and I are discussing it here. And then the hyperinflation does follow. Now we've got this jumble of stuff that is big earthquakes, lots of damage, rescues, all different kinds of crud from March through say early September. And then in the midst of trying to recover from all of that and getting hit by a super hard early winter, that's when we get the next big economic blows, if you will. So Bix, you and I are going to have a really rough time here over these next couple of months as a big 7-0 hits us off the coast here in Washington and causes a ripple effect down through into California. And this is already baked in the cake because of this long slip earthquake that is underway here at the moment. And when they terminate, about a week later, there's usually a 7 to a 7.7 earthquake. And it's sort of aimed right at Olympia, so I don't feel too good about that. But anyway, it's going to ripple down the coast as well.
Time to batten down the hatches.
You guys should move to New York, where we have high taxes. We're almost as liberal as you guys.
Get south, my friend. Get south.
Dude, I've lived in New York
and
for
we
a little brief time.
And we get Fukushima radiation and good pizza. What more do you guys want?
Well, you got to be able to have a legal cannabis. I mean, you're not going to be able to survive without the stuff.
That's very true.
Amen.
That's my next crop for my greenhouse.
Yeah.
I'm going to start making Jolly Rancher candy from cannabis. But I might need my own supply.
If you've never tried it, I hate to recommend it, but if you've never tried it, get into dabs.
What's dabs?
You take a bud of really fine sativa or indica. You put it in a special kind of press that has a known level of heat, and you press it with this heat, and you just press out and extract the cannabinoids, the THC and the
the wonderful cannabinoids, right?
Right. Okay, and it comes out in this honey oil or sort of a sticky kind of a product, and then
CJ's friend knows how to do that.
Right, and then you heat up a receptacle, and you just put a little tiny on there. A little dab will do you, and it's an amazing shift over from smoking it. It lasts for hours and hours, cures all your arthritis for maybe 4 or 5 hours, so you don't have to run around with packing the stuff around all the time.
Wow, that's awesome.
It's the Canna Rancher V.
That's it.
Cliff, what was that stuff you recommended? That I bought some. I can't say it. It's the Indian jam.
The Chaiwan Prash.
Oh, yeah. That stuff's awesome. I've been using that for over a year now. It's awesome.
What is this Chaiwan Prash?
Because of the chemtrails and stuff, your lungs are under assault, right? And so the Ayurveda, Ayurveda is this Hindu evidence-based medicine. Right, goes back 6,000 years. Chaiwan Prash is this mixture of hundreds of herbs that are cooked in butter and sugar until they get down to this.
How do you spell that?
CHAWAN Prash, PRASH. Prash means jam. Chaiwan is the guy's name.
Okay.
Okay, and it's an herbal mixture that you take every morning, and it revs you up, gets your system going. It's a vasodilator, a bronchodilator, helps you get rid of the chemtrails. It's also anti-radioactive material. It's really good stuff. I mean, and it's rumored to keep you healthy until you're 900.
That's awesome. Would that be like good for kids as well? Like
exactly. You give them a half dose. Now here's the deal.
It tastes like it doesn't taste great.
It's got pepper and stuff in it. Okay, it's got.
That is very good, my friend.
Right, exactly, and it has cayenne and all this kind of stuff. But here's the deal: Chaiwan Prash is usually taken by Hindus in the winter months where you have a need to get more activity in the lungs, and it's only used then, really against flu season, so to speak. Right. The rest of the year, you would take this stuff called Amrit Kalash. AMRIT, and that's KALASH. And Amrit Kalash is you take it every day of the year, and it does the same things for you without the extra stimulation to the lungs that you may not need in the hot, dry season. You got to be a little bit careful. You wouldn't want to overtake something and work your way into a state of ill health.
Yeah.
But exactly. on the other hand, constantly being inundated with chemtrails, boy, I got to tell you that it's that kind of stuff that the long pepper and stuff. Yeah.
Well, there's nothing wrong with barium salts and
yeah, in their proper place. Yeah. Yeah.
A little aluminum in the brain don't hurt nobody. I'm kidding.
Yeah. Well, hey, I got friends of mine that are telling me horror stories about what's going on in Canada relative to the drought in the forests up there and the chemtrails. Now, I'm hoping that what we were looking at with the chemtrail poisoning was also a giant drought episode caused by son of blob that was off the coast of Alaska for about 3.5 years. But if these are the result of chemtrail poisoning, then all of the Canadians will be heading to New York really over the next 2 or 3 years as the whole of the country burns because the forests are dead for thousands of miles. I mean, I've got friends of mine that are in the natural resources business, right? I used to code for these guys. And some of the pilots I still communicate with up there, and they'll fly in the spring and in the summer. They'll fly over areas doing surveys, and they might see one live fir tree in a range that where it might be literally a square mile on each side of everything dead. And there's so many insects that they can't fly too close because the engines get the insects up and they're likely to crash because you can't see because there's so many of them. It's that horrific. And they're dying from aluminum poisoning. And I've got other guys that work for fisheries habitat people here in Washington as well as in BC. And if it's not the radiation coming in from the Pacific, it's the huge amounts of aluminum washing in off of the uplands now that are killing off all of the salmon and so forth. And here's the irony of it. We're putting all this money into the resources here, trying to keep all these fish and the habitat alive as the chemtrails are poisoning it. So, and these days, anybody who buys organic is a fool unless you know that it's grown in a greenhouse, because what does organic mean in the years of chemtrails and radiation? It's that bad. Now, the radiation part is good for us up here because our soils are so porous from all the rain that, the rain washes the radiation away from us. In Bix's area, it's going to concentrate it into the new inland sea. I don't know what they're going to call that when the fish are swimming in the steps of Sacramento. And the scary part of that is that probably when Bix was a little kid and we first did these reports back in like 2004 or 2005, we had some really long-term data sets that described a nasty earthquake followed by a flood. And I thought it was going to be a tsunami because the description actually had fish swimming over the Capitol steps. And so I assumed, boy, I'm in a world of hurt here in Olympia because our Capitol is up on the 200 feet higher than I am at the moment. But now, of course, it looks like, well, hey, maybe it was talking about Sacramento and that whole area in there being flooded out. And then if that's the case, then I'll, in a couple of years, I'll probably mosey on down to Jamestown and see about buying some waterfront property in the foothills of the Sierras.
And you can pick up all the gold that's been washed away.
Yeah, man, that's going to be something, though. I've got a long history. It goes back to Jamestown era in that area up there. And I think when Orville goes, we're going to have gold that'll just be smushed all over several hundred surface miles in that valley.
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting what you said about earlier about, once we have the technology for replication. I mean, think about it. We already are able to create diamonds in a laboratory using just the simplicity of high pressure. It's only a matter of time.
I saw a video yesterday or the day before, 3D printing a house.
Oh yeah. The whole Chinese guy, they 3D printed a 400 square foot house for like less than 10 grand. I mean, the future is incredible, man. I mean, we start replicating like gold and silver, and I love the fact you talked about Bitcoin because it's about the relationship, it's about the replication of transaction, and that's what people tend to miss. It's not just the fact that it's a currency, folks. It's the technology that makes it so incredible.
Exactly, because we'll be able to use it off planet, and we're going to have to. I think that's what we've got to start doing is thinking off planet. And how would you transfer wealth? It doesn't make any sense to haul silver up. And then especially if silver can be just created.
Yeah.
Bix may know some of the guys in the woo-woo world because he strays over there occasionally, when they sober him up from his bar fights and clean him up a bit. Oh, I heard some stuff about what he was doing down in Acapulco.
I know. He was
guys.
Oh. He was
what a bad boy. Yeah.
Those Bitcoin guys that, they're not real seasoned when it comes to bar life. And
you're a musician. Yeah.
I'm a musician. I've been hanging with Bill Murphy for years. Bill was down there, David Morgan. We're old school metal guys. We've been drinking and arguing in bars for at least 30 years. These guys are little techie guys who have their first vanilla teeny and get all excited.
It's a new world, a brave new world. Yeah,
I'm trying to straddle both.
I say Bitcoin's going to be really exciting. Our data actually shows the word exploding in price in 2019. So imagine what it's going to do if it's going to explode in price then. And I think that's when they start using it for like national settlements, that sort of thing.
Well, what's going to happen is most Americans will sell it now and then buy it when it's high at that time. You know,
Probably.
it's the whole tradition. Buy low, sell high.
Yep.
I'm sorry, buy high, sell low.
I think a really interesting thing is what China just shut down all the rehypothecation and fraud going on in their exchanges. So the volumes, everybody's like, oh my God, the volume of Bitcoin is dropping. Yes, it's dropping because they were like 1 week at the end of December, they traded 65 million Bitcoin in the Chinese exchanges. These are not blockchain transactions. It's a pool in these exchanges. And that's why they're not letting people redeem their Bitcoin. They're letting them bring cash out, but they're not letting them redeem the Bitcoin because there's no Bitcoin there for them to get.
Exactly. Yeah. But hey, let me tell you, I heard from a couple of people here that are, they were trying to offer me money a little while ago to do a deterministic run about the ETF. Okay. And this is back before the February report. And deterministic runs, basically, just let the system run in what I call serendipitous mode, and what it brings back, right? But if I run in deterministic mode, I could pick a target and go tell my spiders to go hunt down that target and see what we can find. Now, the problem with this, from my viewpoint, is that a lot of things, it's a pain in the ass to do, but also you're always going to find something. So just because you're going to hunt for a specific topic and bring in stuff around that. And so you're never quite sure if it's going to be as prescient as the serendipitous or not. But anyway, these guys were offering me money because what they wanted to do was to game the ETF decision. All right. And they were going to give me cash up front and then a piece of the action on their gaming. And they were going to, I don't know how the gaming component of it was going to go, but I heard from one of them today, just in passing, because I wasn't going to do it. It would, you can't, if I do that, I couldn't do a regular report. And so I would have had to, had some serious money to do a deterministic run anymore. But in any event, they were telling me that they've got cash stored on the sidelines or on the hopes that the ETF's decision is negative. They're going to swoop in and score Bitcoin, they think. And so they were going to probably do something like that if the data could tell them that, it was going to be positive or negative so far out. Maybe they were going to make bets or something, but that was their goal, was to use it to generate a profit. But anyway, so he's telling me about the levels of cash they've got, and I've got to say I'm impressed about that. So there are people that are waiting for the ETF to be turned down in order for the price to fall in order to start purchasing.
I've been starting to look at that ETF. The thing that scares, it's kind of like this silver and gold ETF. People were so excited when it happened, and then they figure out, oh, this is just a diversion of money away from the real thing, real shares and physical gold. But the big kicker for me was reading the prospectus of the ETF. One of the authorized participants is Virtu Financial, which is Vincent Viola's company, which is a company used to be called EWT LLC, a completely criminal computer rigging company run by the deep state. And Vincent Viola is the guy that Trump, the people behind Trump wanted to get as the head of the army. But he had to back down because he's a criminal. But he's
right.
he's a deep
slight impediment there. Yeah.
So I wouldn't get so excited. And it's just like the exchanges. It's a Bitcoin derivative that will be traded back and forth. And once in a while they'll go out and they'll pull real Bitcoin into the pool. But the trading will be with Bitcoin derivatives in the form of shares of stock.
Yeah, I was never excited about the ETF in any case, and it doesn't really even show up as a blip in the data sets relative to the Bitcoin that we've got. I never coded in any way of looking at falling prices. It was just, I was just sort of blindsided because I didn't understand the economic world at that time. I was strictly a coder, and so I don't have that ability. But it would make sense that there would be a slight pullback. And if the ETF is turned down simply because you've got all those funds guys that are thinking they're going to make a lot of money on it and may have purchased Bitcoin ahead of that.
And they will, and you have your market riggers who will dump a bunch on the market to get everybody else running for the hills so that they can load up at cheaper prices. Yeah,
like these guys that contacted me, and they were somewhat unsavory to deal with, I'm quite sure, just because of the language that came across. So, it wasn't anything I was going to do anyway, but it was interesting to see it from that perspective.
Cliff, let me ask you this real quick as we come to the end of the program. What does your data set say about the New Silk Road and the entire swing of wealth and what's going on towards the east, where it's the New Silk Road, the Eurasian Economic Union, this entire new world where you're having the integration of the entire Eastern European countries, Asia, ASEAN nations, Africa, Global South, SCO. I mean, it is a huge, huge move. And it seems like the U.S. is being isolated and being left out in the dark. What does your data set say about that?
Yeah, exactly. It's self-isolating, though.
Yes, we are.
Yeah, our data has held this for some time that basically the war part of the war and welfare state was going to lose its dominance here in our empire. The empire was going to fade as the everything shifted over to China. And then during this period of time, we've got to sort our house out. But we have for the USA, it's not as bleak as it may be assumed, even though we're going to go through some really hard times. I mean, we haven't even hit the hard times yet, guys. That's going to be coming this fall. We're going to get nailed after these natural disasters. We're going to get hit by an economic disaster, and then no one's going to want to trade with us. And so we won't be able to do international trade, and we'll find out who our real friends are, because they'll be the ones that'll be willing to loan us stuff.
Speaking of real friends,
that's the exact thing that's said in the Road to Reader's Teacher's Guide from the Fed.
You're kidding.
That Colorland, the place that Ruta lives, is not going to be able to trade with, they call it, what it was, I forgot the name, but it's Mexico and Canada and the rest of the world. And it says, when will Colorland be able to trade again with other nations? Amazing that it is lining up exactly with what the Fed said. And this goes back to the late 70s, early 80s, when the original Road to Ruta comic books were written and the Teacher's Guide. It's saying everything that's happening today is literally written in these comic books. Crazy stuff.
Well, that's why we've got this gold rush coming up too, is because we hit this economic wall, not financial system, but economic, where people won't trade with us for lettuce, and you can't get, hamburger buns, that kind of thing, right? So we've got to do something, and that's when basically the government gets out of the way, and people go crazy trying to scrounge up gold and dig it out of the ground anywhere they can, and we've got this period of time with gold rush language that just goes on and on and on. Not just in Lake California, but all across the country. We get into mining in a serious way, basically just to, as a nation, start digging our way out of the hole that the globalism has got us into.
Cliff, let me ask you this real quick. With the revelations of Vault 7, and now the fact that my beloved iPhone 7 Plus, my beloved Google Pixel XL, my iPad Pros
have all seen you naked.
Have all seen me naked in very compromising positions, Cliff. Very compromising positions. Everything from shaving of chest hairs and other things.
No details, please.
So how will the relationship, now that they see that all the tech products that are coming out of the U.S. that are U.S.-backed companies, how will the world handle our products now? Now that it's all been tainted.
Well, that's it, and that ends it all. It's on all the different levels, and so this was the beginning of the chaos. Is this particular antidote, this particular red pill to the illusionary reality that was being crafted by our deep state? And so there's going to be people that in the natural course of things here, you're going to have Hindus that are already working on it, and some guy in Romania and another guy in Bulgaria that are seeing the glints of their local currencies in their eyes as they're rapidly coding like mad to be able to hit the market and be the first to offer counters to all of these various different approaches. And so these guys are just going to go crazy with this. And just over the next couple of weeks, you're going to start seeing significant changes in how business is done, simply because the pill has been swallowed, and once your eyes are open, you don't shut them again. And so all these corporations will just lock out the NSA. They'll lock out the CIA. They won't be able to tap their phones anymore. They won't be able to read their emails. They won't know who's bidding on what, how much. And all of the deals are going to start going sour. And as you point out, the technology will be swept for all the crap that's been left in them. And so people will now have a premium. They can say, hey, clean iPhone, no NSA, get your clean iPhone here. And boy, you're going to pay premium for that. Now, me, I was sort of smart. I take technologically behind in things. I ran across this guy years ago who was a hardcore programmer, and he's still running Windows 98, and I can still fire that up anytime I want. No one's writing viruses for it. No one's trying to spy on it. And I've got a phone that's that same way that I got internationally and made sure that it was clean way back when. So, you know, if you stay a little bit behind the times, you're also good that way.
I'm screwed. I just put an order in for a Nintendo Switch. I'm so screwed.
Well, yeah, I'd start, you know, making sure you're wearing underwear.
Oh, man. There it goes.
On that note.
Yeah.
On that note, closing comments. I guess, Bix, we'll start with you, buddy. Give your
So fun to have Clif here, and a great day. I'll ask my 400 other questions later, and thank you, Clif, for coming.
Sure. Yeah, I'm going to have to take a couple of months off. I've got to get some stuff accomplished up here, so I'm going to be doing less interviews and that kind of thing for a little while and just cranking out.
We caught you in the nick of time then.
You did indeed. This is probably the last one for a while.
Wow, that's all. Wow. Thank you for coming on, guys. Thank you both for coming on. You guys have been fantastic. You guys made this special hump day with me and Bix the best hump day ever. Totally awesome. Just
cool.
So much
well,
fun.
Thanks much, guys. It was really fun.
Thank you all for listening in. This is V and Bix and Clif High and CJ. We're over and out. Take it away, CJ.